Done scanning. All right, guys, we're going to start. My name is George Kent, and I'm with Oxford House. I get to help lead the teams in the northeast part of the country, New York, New Jersey, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, that areas. I want to welcome everybody to the 2018 Oxford House World Convention. This is a big group. This morning, all the people, I couldn't believe it. It was overwhelming. Can you guys just turn off your cell phones because they're recording this, so we don't want to hear your cool ringtones or whatever you got going on. We're going to have the 5 panelists speak, and then at the end you could save your questions, and we'll have a microphone. You can come speak into it because, again, we're recording this. This is the Working with Drug Courts, Parole and Prison Reentry session. Over 3/4 of the Oxford House population have served some jail or prison time. In America today, approximately 60% of those in jail or prison are addicted to alcohol and or drugs. Each year, thousands of those who are incarcerated re-enter society. However, within 1 year of re-entry, about half of the individuals will commit another crime and be headed to conviction and re-entry into incarceration. The experience of those who enter an Oxford House following incarceration or drug court intervention is usually long-term recovery. I can't read this damn thing. It's bright up here and dark down here. Is usually long-term recovery and crime-free behavior. In some states, Oxford House has developed relationships with reentry programs that permit those leaving incarceration to go straight to an Oxford House. Other residents come to Oxford House at the recommendation of drug courts or parole officers, who have found that their clients tend to do well if they live in an Oxford House. Not only does such intervention motivate clients to begin to master the recovery process, it also saves taxpayers the cost of incarceration and recidivism. Oxford House residents who enter an Oxford House from incarceration are exposed to participatory democracy rather than institutionalized authority. They are elected to leadership positions and undertake shared responsibilities for the operation of the house. Most residents rise to the occasion. This kind of real-life training is rare for most individuals re-entering society. The panel will discuss 1, the need for post-incarceration recovery opportunities, 2, practical ways to facilitate getting individuals leaving incarceration into an Oxford House, 3, how Oxford House can develop drug court clients, achieve long-term recovery, and meet the expectations of drug courts, and 4, how Oxford House living facilitates the transition to long-term crime-free recovery for most residents. The panelists are all experienced in the field. Judge Carpenter served as a court judge in Missouri for almost 20 years. The other panelists include experienced Oxford House alumni, including an ex-con and a resident.
That's great.
It's in there. I was going to skip over, but it gives a little relation. Now people can relate to us. The first person we're going to have up is Curtis Taylor.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Wow. You guys all right? Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. There you go. There you go. Yeah, when we were on them corners, you could hear us loud and clear, right? I know you could me. My name is Curtis Taylor, and I'm a person in long-term recovery. And what that means for me is that I have not used alcohol or any other drug in over 15 years now. Yeah. Trust and believe that that is strictly by God's grace and mercy. I take zero credit, absolutely no credit for any of the good things taking place in my life. I give God 100% of the glory for all of it. Yeah. So some of you guys have probably heard me run my mouth a little bit before, I've been around Oxford House since 1996. I was raised up in this program, so to speak. I was formerly an outreach coordinator in North Carolina. There were, I believe, 13 Oxford houses in my territory when I took it over. When I turned it over in February of this year, there were 54 Oxford houses in that particular territory. I also served quite a few years as the reentry coordinator for Oxford Houses of North Carolina. I am honored to have turned that system and program over to Mr. Justin, who shares the podium with me today. And but before I left, Justin just shared with me the numbers. As of March of this year, that particular program has placed 1,015 people from prison in Oxford House. Yeah. So, as I thought about what I wanted to share with you this morning, the first thing I thought about was, okay, well, I need to make sure I give just a little bit of my story, right? Just a little bit, because we don't have a lot of time today. But then I also just want to reiterate to each and every one of you how important it is to have a full understanding that there is absolutely no person on this planet that is any better than you or any less than you. So real quick, I introduced myself as a person in recovery, which means at one time I was not in recovery. I did a lot of things, man. The disease of addiction took me many places. I spent years on the street homeless. I sold dummies as an occupation. Shoplifting, in and out of jail more times than I can count, guns pointed to my head, and I had guns pointed at you too. I was unemployable, I was derelict. I remember being that guy in the parking lot of the corner store, begging for change, trying to work up a pint of wine, just so I could attempt to feel comfortable in my own skin, just for a second or two. Fast forward to recovery. Today, I'm a homeowner. Today, I'm a business owner. Remember, I was homeless and I was unemployable. Today, I own my home and I own a business, and I'm sure as heck not going to fire myself. Today, I'm a full-time student at Shaw University, maintaining the 4.0 GPA. Finishing up my bachelor's in social work. I graduate this coming May. And I'm also the president of the Social Work Association at my university. Today, I'm the executive director of the Alcohol Drug Council of North Carolina. One of the main functions of my agency is an information and referral hotline for the entire state of North Carolina, so that any citizen in our state that is seeking services for substance use disorder, my call response staff, a lot of which are here at this convention, my call response staff assesses that particular situation, determines the appropriate level of care, and immediately makes a referral to a service provider within that person's community. I'm honored to serve for this agency. I'm honored to help people, because guess what? A whole lot of people have helped me. So I share all of that with you to say that I've been to prison, right? Although my name today is not convicted felon. That's not the title that I go by. That's not what my son calls me. That's not what my daughter calls me. That's not what the staff of my agency calls me. There's no need for you to keep looking at my past, because guess what? I don't live there anymore. Earlier, the gentleman asked us, did any of us have a PowerPoint? Everybody said no. I said, no, sir. Today, we are the PowerPoint. This right here is what reentry looks like. So when you get that phone call from whatever reentry coordinator you have in your state or from a prison facility, and they say, hey, I've got a gentleman being released soon. I've got a young lady being released next month. She needs a place to stay. Would you guys mind giving this person an interview? I want you to immediately take a second and think about what you're about to say next. Be extremely careful. And just think about, what if the person that answered the phone when that phone call was about your tail would have looked down their nose and said, oh, wait a minute, what kind of charges does she have? What is she locked up for? I don't know about that. I don't know about somebody coming to live with us that used to steal. What? Are you serious? Be real careful that we don't get 90 days, 6 months clean, get a haircut, and take a bath, and all of a sudden we're better than everybody else and forget where we come from. Right now today, as we enjoying all this beautiful barbecue in Kansas City, Missouri, there's a man, there's a woman on their bunk in that prison dorm, on that little nasty, stinking mat on the floor in the county jail, that needs to find recovery, just like you and I found recovery. If somebody gave me an opportunity, if you have this wonderful opportunity, by all means, let's make sure we're passing this opportunity on to some people, okay? All right? I think that's my time. Thank you for letting me share.
Good morning. Well, I've heard some speakers this morning, and many people have started off by saying that they're in recovery. And I am not in recovery. I'm the judge who ran a drug court for almost 20 years, who recommended to people that they get in recovery and that they try to live in an Oxford house. So I'm coming to you with my perspective as a judge who not only worked with drug court participants, but did normal court, did the kind of job where people came in and entered a plea of guilty, and I told them how long they were going to have to be in prison. That was not the kind of job I really wanted to have. I wanted to have a job where I could intervene, where I could talk to people directly, where I could be a part of a recovery community. And I think that in Columbia, Missouri, where I practiced and where I was on the bench, we developed a system of alternative sentencing courts that really grew from the basic drug court model to include a veterans treatment court, a DWI court, a mental health court, and a family treatment court, so that now when people come into the criminal justice system in our county, all of the judges, not just the drug court judge, is aware of the fact that addiction is a great contributor to why people are in our programs, and we always think first, are they an appropriate candidate for a diversion program rather than an incarceration? So I just want to make sure that everybody knows what I'm talking about when I say drug court. Is there anybody in here who's ever been in a drug court? Congratulations. Is there anybody here who was ever in my drug court? Okay. Drug court started out quite a while ago, almost pretty simultaneous with the Oxford House startups back in the 80s, and one of the very first drug courts, one of the first 12 drug courts, was here in Kansas City. And our Missouri Senator Claire McCaskill was at that time a prosecuting attorney here in Jackson County, and she was one of the original founders of the drug court movement. So drug court goes back a long way in this area, and Missouri has a very active drug court system. And I've been lucky enough over the years since 1999, when I started as a drug court judge, to be able to be on the faculty of the National Drug Court Institute and teach around the country and help people establish courts. So I've seen a lot of courts in a lot of states, and I'm now doing some international work. In the previous session, there was a question from a man who said he was a Vietnam War veteran. Is he still in the room? I don't see him. I wanted to be able to tell him that I'm leaving on Sunday to go to Vietnam to spend 2 weeks training judges there to develop drug courts at their request. This is not, it's not an invasion. It's a response to an invitation. So many of you are familiar with drug courts, and you understand the issues that we deal with in drug court. We realize that in order to get into drug court, you have to have a substance use disorder, and we've understood that that needs to be a fairly serious substance use disorder, and that's the people that really need our help, not the easy people, not the kids who are smoking marijuana in college and would quit anyway, but they just happen to get arrested. We're talking about people who have been incarcerated, who have come back from prison, and really need more to help them to stay in the recovery lifestyle, not just be clean and sober, but be in recovery. These reentry programs, I told you all the different kinds of courts we started. The reentry program to me was the most rewarding and the most successful program that we ever did. We established a program where, in Missouri, we have a system where the judge can send you to the Department of Corrections into a treatment program for 120 days. And the judge maintains jurisdiction, and then at the end of the 120 days, you come back. Now, the typical situation when people get out of prison after 120 days is what? I'm back. And I'm back to my old house and my old friends and my old habits and my old problems. So we worked very hard to establish this concept where we intervened right at that release time, so that everybody who was coming back to our county from their 120-day was released on a Tuesday. And they were transported. They weren't just put out the door. They were transported to our county to a secure facility, and they were interviewed about their home plan. They were informed about the program. They appeared in court with me the next day, and if everything was set up for a good home plan that we had already approved, and we informed them that they were going to continue to be supervised in this program for as long as it took to make sure that they had made the transition, and then they were released. So some people were there 3 months, some 6 months, some a year. It depended on how long it took them. And the biggest thing that we got as feedback at the end of that program for people was that key of getting me out of the Department of Corrections and back into the community with that stop. You know, I didn't just run back to the corner. I had somebody telling me, we're still helping you, we're still here, we're still intervening, was the key to their success. And a big part of it was the ability to obtain housing in an Oxford house, to obtain employment, to get help with transportation, to get help with reintegration, which is what we called the court. It was a reintegration court. And I just think that the concept that we learned more and more and more as we deal with folks in drug court is, if you don't have safe and secure and stable housing, it's almost impossible to maintain a recovery lifestyle. We also found that making linkages with employers so that people could find work, we got grant money so that we found employers who would hire people because we would say, you don't have to pay them, we'll pay them. You put them to work, we'll pay them. And those folks, many of them turned into employees that the employer did pay. We got them started. Transportation, also a huge issue. In many places, we don't have public transportation, not in a city like Kansas City. But I really do think that the housing situation was the most the biggest intervention that we could do. I also now serve as a Class A trustee on the General Service Board of Alcoholics Anonymous. And that has been very interesting work, because a lot of times when I stand up in front of AA folks and say I'm a drug court judge, I don't get applause. And I have been trying really hard in my first 2 years on the board to educate people in AA about drug court and to educate people in drug court about AA. I think that any 12-step program can be almost a miraculous help for people who are in recovery, who are trying to get into recovery. And I just wanted to have the opportunity to let you know that there's a lot to learn on both sides about each other. But I want to make sure that all of you realize that I looked at the research on Oxford houses before I came here, and the linkage with AA and other 12-step, and it was very strong. It was, when I talk about recovery and having housing as a big issue, well, the 12-step support is also a huge issue and a huge part of a successful recovery program. So I encourage all of you to continue with that. I know there's a great, strong history between Oxford House and AA, but I want to make sure that all of you know we've been working really hard on the AA board with the Grapevine board, the magazine that's published by AA. And it's available not only in print but online. You have to pay for it, but there are parts of the Grapevine that you don't have to pay for. There's a quote of the day every morning at 5 a.m. It's a nice thing to put on the board at your house. It's kind of almost a mini meeting you can turn it into. There are books published. There's a project, a story project, where you can call in and tell your story, and it becomes part of the archive. So I'm wearing a couple of different hats: drug court judge, AA board member, and now here in this Fellowship of Oxford House. I feel very proud to have been a judge who recommended Oxford House to a lot of people, as in because I saw firsthand how much it helped. And every one of those people that was successful in drug court that I didn't have to see again, except in a pleasant, friendly way, maybe at the Walmart, that's what made my career as a judge worthwhile. And so, again, thank you for inviting me here to talk to you. I look forward to any questions you might have later.
Good morning, guys. My name is Justin. I'm the Reentry Coordinator for Oxford Houses of North Carolina. I'm also a resident at Oxford House, Camden, in Wilmington, North Carolina. If you had asked me a year ago if I would be up here on this stage, I never in my life would have thought that I would be given this great opportunity. Being a repeat offender in and out of prison from the age of 18, and being stubborn, being introduced to Oxford Houses in 1994. I've been in and out since 94, and it's taken this long for me to actually grasp that it's no longer all about me. I finally see the bigger picture, and you guys are an example of that. I'm assuming that you're here today because you're serious about your recovery and you love Oxford House. So I'm going to kind of just touch base a little bit about what I do. Like I said, I am the reentry for North Carolina. I covered the entire state of North Carolina. That's a big state to cover. I have some big shoes to fill, as Curtis Taylor was the reentry coordinator up until March, and I stepped in, and it's been a task. I need to give thanks to Karen McKeenan. who took me underneath her wing and showed me the ropes of reentry. See, I had a lot of experience being in prison and dealing with the case managers not doing their job. The ones who we were just a number. So what I don't think that a lot of people in prison realize is that I too am them, for there go I. So I get the opportunity to be out here and fight for the ones who can't fight for themselves, and I take a lot of pride and dignity in that, you know. So I currently, since I've taken this position in March, some of the projects that we've got up and running so far, we've asked the houses across North Carolina to get Global Tel put on their home phones, so that way the individuals can call from the dorms for the case managers that will not or cannot allow them to use the telephone. This gives them the opportunity to conduct their interviews. I do a screening. I am an initial screening. I determine, which is not my favorite part of the job. I get to determine whether or not I feel like they are meet the criteria of Oxford House. How willing are they? You know, that is not my favorite part. I do not like to be the judge of anything. But that's my job title, and that's my duty, so therefore I do it. So after that, you know, it comes to a second interview process, which, thank you, Curtis, for stating that. You know, that is a huge, huge issue of actually getting the House members together to conduct this second interview. You know, like I said, it's no longer about us. You know, we hold a responsibility to those who haven't made it to us yet. I live off of that. I hold that. I hold our chapter accountable to that. I have an amazing chapter. I have an amazing state behind me with the support of an amazing staff who have become my family. They always answer the phone for me. I want to give recognition to Charlotte. The Charlotte area of North Carolina, they have recently made, there are 2 houses currently in that area that have a reentry, that have a reentry bed. These individuals in those 2 houses have raised their personal EES to hold a bed, well, I say hold, to have a bed available for the individuals coming out of prison. They are my first point of contact. Thank you, Charlotte. So I want, I just need a show of hands. How many of you guys do not have a reentry coordinator in your state? So, with that, I strongly encourage you to create a reentry subcommittee. That will give you the opportunity to be able to go into these jails to interview the individuals through the glass until, because there is a demand and it is coming. Oxford House is ever growing. If you guys don't already do it, which I'm sure a lot of you do, I encourage you to do it. I mean, these people, you know, I am one that walked out of the gates of prison with a plastic bag and some pictures and the few little bit of letters that individuals wrote me. And if I can stay clean, and I owe that to Oxford House and my personal program, I definitely owe it to Oxford House for holding me accountable. Gosh, you guys are amazing. That's a lot of people. I don't know. I just know that reentry, I mean, The numbers show. I mean, there were over 2,000 applicants, and 1,015 of those were placed. You know, that's in North Carolina alone. This gentleman right here, like I said, man, I have some big shoes to fill, but I'm willing and ready for the challenge. I'm not even able to do that without the assistance of all you guys. You know, I don't do nothing. We do this. It's not me. It's you. But I guess I don't know what else really to get into other than this. If you receive a telephone call from, whether it be collect or from a case manager, please answer the phone. You know, with the first 24 hours upon one's release are the most crucial moments of that individual's life. So if you can play a part in helping that man, he took some of the things I wanted to touch about. It's like, who am I? Who am I to judge, regardless of where you come from, the crimes that you've committed? You know, for there go I, man. It's like everyone. Who am I to deny you your right to recovery? And if Oxford House works for all of us, who's to say it can't work for them? So, with all that, I thank you guys for giving me this opportunity. And thank you again.
Hi, guys. My name's Ashley Young. I am a woman in long-term recovery, and what that means to me is that I have not had to drink or drugs since March 24th of 2014. A little bit about what I do. I am the Reentry chair for Eastern Kansas. I'm also a resident here at the Bella Vita Oxford House. So, you know, my job is similar to Justin's. I do the same things. You know, I hate having to judge just as much as he does. So what I've been recently able to do, I've been able to go into these prisons and give presentations to these inmates that think that Oxford houses are just like halfway houses and that they don't want to go somewhere else to be told what to do. And I share a little bit of my experience because I too am an inmate, you know, or was an inmate. Not anymore. So, you know, it helps to go in there and tell them, you know, I was here too, you know, and tell them about my success, my experience, strength, and hope, you know. I currently live in a reentry house, and to be able to watch these women go out and get jobs and to get their children back and to go to meetings and to become, you know, when they come out there, sometimes they're institutionalized, and to be able to form bonds with us women in the house is amazing to watch that. You know, I struggle, you know, I get about 30 to 50 applications a month, and I'm only able to place 10 of them here in Kansas right now, in my side. And that's sad to know that, you know, there's 20 more men or women that aren't gonna have anywhere to go, and they're gonna go back to doing the same things that they were once doing. So, you know, I've come across the problem. People don't want to let these people into their houses because they think, you know, they're going to steal from us. They're going to rob us. Well, I was going to steal from you and rob you too when I was getting high, but I'm not anymore. And so they deserve the same chance that we do. I too deal with the counselors and the reentry coordinators in the prisons here in Kansas. And man, once I go in there, the applications just start flooding, and I'm stuck with nowhere to place these people, and it makes my heart hurt. I am so passionate for reentry. Like, you'll have to excuse me, I'm probably gonna get emotional right now. Because, you know, it's so hard to watch these men and women in these prisons when I go in there and I'm telling them about Oxford House, and they're like, I have nowhere to go. And they start crying to me, men and women crying to me about not having anywhere to go. And they're scared that they're gonna go back to the same thing. You know, if it wasn't for Oxford House, I would have been back there doing the same thing. So, I strongly encourage you guys, if you're not a reentry house, take it back to your houses, talk to them. We all deserve the same chance. I don't know where I would be without Oxford. And I have a woman in my house right now who came out, had a job 2 days later. She goes to see her children every week. She goes to meetings every day. She will be at this convention today. She deserved just as much chance as a person coming out of treatment. You don't know those people that are coming out of treatment. You don't know those people coming out of prison, but they deserve the same exact chance. I don't know really what else to say. I'm a little nervous. This is the first time I've done something like this, but I'd be happy to answer any questions for you guys at the end. All right, well, thank you guys.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Dan. I'm an alcoholic and a drug addict. And I've been sober since July 18th, 2007, clean as well. For that, I'm grateful. So I was looking at that program that when George was reading that description, I was like, wow, I wonder if they're talking about me. I am what that program says is an ex-con, but actually I'm a survivor. I'm a survivor, and God's grace got me here today. You've heard a lot, reentry's close to my heart, drug courts are close to my heart, and what I always find, we've got so many talented people in Oxford House, and it's really amazing. This is a pretty emphasized panel, and the people that are in Oxford House, I get to see Curtis in the hallway, and I haven't seen him for a year, so I hug him. We don't talk anything about this, and he's kind of the one that taught me that the first time they brought me up here. He says, man, if you need to know what to say, we got a problem. and I know exactly what to say, and hearing these folks up here talk about reentry and what it's about, it's a part of my life. But I want to talk about drug courts and reentry and a little bit of both today, because you've kind of heard the hope side of things. I just know that with me, personally, what it meant for me for somebody to reach out and care for me a little bit when I needed it. Gave me some food, showed me where I was sleeping. I tell my story all the time about Oxford House, and I always talk about the first night I got in the house, and they took me down to the basement where I was sleeping and showed me my room and said, you'll be staying in here, and here's some clean sheets. And they said, do you need a blanket? And I said, no, I got one. I'm good. You got a pillow? Yeah. He said, well, let me get you a remote control. We were staying in the basement of this house, and he walked over by the washing machine, and they had this little, it looked like a laundry basket, and inside of that was a remote control. And he took a remote control out, and then he went over and opened a drawer, and it was overflowing with brand new packs of batteries. And I was like, man, these guys got their act together. And he walks over to me and hands me the remote, and he said, Dan, you should be all set. And remember, tomorrow's chore day. And you got the kitchen. And the last thing I said to the guy, and I'll never forget it because it is a really, really big part of my recovery story. And I think it really ties into what Oxford House really is. I said, hey, man, what cable channels we get? And he turned around and he lowered his glasses on his nose and he said, all of them. And for me, I had made a long succession of bad decisions, just one after another. And so shortly after getting into a house, it immediately came to me the times that, and I've heard Curtis say this on some of our promotional stuff, our videos and things, that it got to where I was using prison as a time to recharge, and I would have a specific plan for when I was getting out. I'm going to do this and this and this and this. And what I ended up doing was missing the opportunity that I eventually got in an Oxford House, and I would miss not having all the cable channels, and I would miss not having a comfortable bed. And I knew I had to fight for it, and I didn't know where to get it because I had made all of you mad at me. And most of all, I hated myself. And so when I came in a house, those immediate needs were taken care of. And that's what Oxford House is to me. And some guys showed me some recovery and stuff like that. So it gave me inspiration to try to recreate that for other people, because I know what an impact it had on me. And some of the things, I work with Reentry in Oklahoma, but man, I've just got great people and some things that I've learned that are universally applied because of sentencing laws, because of the drug court programs, they're all different. So you have to learn in every state which works best for your situation. But some common things that I've seen is building relationships with the local parole officers. Every time you get a caseworker on the phone, try to build a relationship with them, to build a level of trust, and you'll see your referrals really explode. And we really need to look at and on the reentry side, what it means to accept people on a basic premise that you want to stop using drugs and stay stopped. Not how many charges you have or what you look like or what little amount of money you may have. So some things that we can focus on as Oxford across the nation or across the world is coming together as groups to raise money specifically to help those folks, chapters and states. Look how many chapters raise money to get people here. How much money it costs to send people here, which is absolutely incredible. Look at taking a little bit of that, which I know we do in our home state. We take a chunk of that money and make sure people got bus passes. We reach out to the community and get bus passes, whether they're in drug court or in reentry. Some of the chapters, a good idea that if you're working with the drug court and you're working to build trust with them, to get referrals from them, because really, I can tell you right now, I wouldn't change anything that's happened in my life, but I sure wish I'd have got sent to drug court, because I would have never had to go through that. And if there's a chance we can get these folks in drug court into an Oxford House and avoid them sitting there turning into just a number, that needs to be a priority. Some of the ideas that you can do, and I know we do it in Oklahoma, we go in and drug courts like to give incentives, at least in Oklahoma, that you've done a celebration for reaching a sobriety milestone or not getting not getting a sanction, whatever it is. So we anonymously deliver gift cards to the judge's chambers and drop them off and walk out the door. We don't even tell them who gave it to them, and they know what it's for, and they know who's doing it because I've gotten text messages from the judge. But we just kind of go in and drop them off and don't say anything. In building these relationships with people, and last but not least, the most important thing that whether it's drug court, treatment center, homeless shelter, street corner, whatever it is, if you don't have time to interview somebody or answer the darn telephone, you really need to find another place to live. And flexibility with that. I mean, I would love to stand up here and tell you how we do things in Oklahoma, but I've been lucky enough to find out through mistakes and then some knowledge that every state's different. But I'll just put it this way: in Oklahoma, we do whatever we have to do to get a vote to get somebody in a house. It's just a priority, and in an overall picture, just trying to recreate what the good experiences that those of us have had. Because the one thing that I have learned is that if you send somebody in a house, the last thing somebody facing prison or going to prison needs is a house of chaos. They need support. So when we're doing prison reentry specifically, let's send them to our good houses and work in the good houses and the stronger houses and explaining to them the benefit of it. Because I know a lot of us run around spouting that first tradition. Well, if you want to teach a house to know what the first tradition is, have them do some reentry. They'll get it. They'll get it real quick. So I'm really, if I was years ago, if I would have thought that I would be asked to speak in front of all you people that I love about reentry, I wouldn't have believed it. I just know that I remember being in that house and that first house I was in, and remembering getting out and not having a solid, safe place to go. So building strong houses, strong chapters, and get out in the community and get them excited about what we're doing. and then and as a conglomerative group, come up with some resources to support them. I know I see guys and gals get out of prison all the time in Oklahoma, and all they got's a paper sack with some stuff in it and not a dollar. But they still deserve an Oxford house, and if we're willing to team together to make that happen, the sky's the limit. Thank you for letting me share today.
All right, guys, we got some time. You want to thank all our panelists again? I'm breaking stuff. They all had some good stuff. I mean, I liked what Curtis said. You know, no one's above or below the newcomer or the person that's been there forever. I love telling that when somebody comes in and they ask about, you know, their room situation, you know. As, you know, the longest standing person just gets the first choice of room. You know, in New Jersey, I've been blessed. Me and Curtis done a bunch of drug court panels, I think, in Washington, D.C., or wherever the heck we were. And I was able to cultivate a relationship with our drug court in New Jersey there, and they end up, you know, coming back and giving us some funds to have an outreach person in our state to expand. And what we did is we went out to the counties that had need. You know, you guys know, you got one house that gets 12 interviews and there's only one bed, so it's probably a good idea to open a house nearby and things like that. Also, one of the things I like about drug court is, you know, we build these relationships with people in treatment and you know, the halfway houses, but like the drug court is working with people in recovery. You know, the treatment centers, they're still in the treatment process. So here we're working with the drug courts, and in New Jersey, they're very cutthroat. It reminds me of growing up. You know, my dad, I didn't get many second chances. You know, I remember when I told my dad, hey, Dad, I got 90 days clean. He's like, big deal. You're supposed to have 90 days clean. You know, like, I was never patted on my back for doing anything I was supposed to do with him. You know, I knew what I was expected to do, and you know, it wasn't going to get an encouragement for doing it. And sometimes with the drug courts, is a lot of the same ways. We've had issues sometimes where the houses are unsure because the drug court member got a sanction. Is that sanction severe enough for him to lose his spot in the house, or isn't it? And you know, I've been around Oxford House for you know, a decent amount of time, and I could tell you this, and it's a general statement. Every person, regardless of their current situation, is a viable applicant for Oxford House. There is no. You know, the only person that I would probably suggest you guys take a long, hard thought on saying yes to if somebody's an active fugitive. I mean, that just might not be some heat you want to take into the house, or be known as a house that's willing to, you know, harbor fugitives. But everything else is acceptable. You know, what's good for one house might not be good for the other. You know, that even goes with age. You know, I've seen sometimes some of the younger guys struggle with some of the older guys, or, you know, some people, you know, whatever their current situation is. You know, we don't want another drug court guy because he's going to snitch on me, and I don't totally follow the rules. I mean, I do, but I don't totally follow them. So sometimes they don't want, you know, multiple people in their house that, you know, could be, you know, I guess run back and tell on them and things like that. But everything's acceptable as long as the house is comfortable. We got some time for some questions. If you guys want to, you know, go up to that microphone.
My name is Zach. I'm from Austin, Texas, and I'm a reentry chair for Chapter 21. All 10 of our houses have approved to allow people in, and we're in the process of actually making that happen. But the one obstacle I've had is we can get state approved, but we can't get federal approved. And I want to know if anybody knows how we can actually make that happen. Being a good case myself. Huh?
When you
Yeah.
guys run into it,
So I know a little bit about, now you're talking about each house. Where'd you go? Okay, so each house was, you have to approve each individual house in Texas, correct? Now, and so now you're talking, is that through the state or is that the federals? Okay, on the federal side, which I would think would be pretty universal, we work with the federal on a limited basis in Oklahoma, and they even go as far as to subsidize some of the entries. I don't know that, but you know, the one common thing that I've seen with the federal side is each office is different. Like I've gone into some, and they just don't want to talk to you, and then some of them will. So I think that's probably what you're running up against if you are having problems. They, you know, just to put it blandly or plainly, they have a rule they're not willing to bend. And a lot of, you know, there's rules in most of those federal probation and parole that prevent them, you know, that makes it hard for Oxford House to be a transition option. Some of them will bend it enough to where you can. Because I have counties that sit beside each other, one will work with us and the other one won't. So maybe that could be what you're up against.
Okay, so the problem that we're having, it seems, is a communication issue with like the corrections officers, the parole officers, in which they know that their client is they've reused, and you know they're pushing them into these Oxford houses. Yet when they reuse, they're not letting the house know, which is a direct violation of our rules. You know, anybody that reuses is grounds for an immediate eviction. How do we open up this line of communication with the parole officers, the corrections officers, so that they, as soon as they find out that it's mandated that they tell us, because we are a reentry house.
Yes, sir. What we found out right away when Kathleen Gibson and I launched the reentry program in North Carolina was that everything is much simpler when you start at the top. So our first meeting was with the person totally 100% in charge of corrections in North Carolina. And then once that person was on board, then they sent the message downward to everybody to be in full 100% compliance with this ex-convict named Curtis Taylor when he contacts you about Oxford House. Whatever he needs, give it to him. And so that would be the process that I would encourage you to follow. Instead of trying to convince and talk to each individual parole officer, find out who is the supervisor and schedule a presentation. Get with your outreach coordinator if you have one in your area. But you know, it needs to come from the management level down to the staff.
Hi, thank you for speaking today. I'm Tiffany from the Bryant House here over in Olathe. It's a women and children's. One of the questions I asked, I do live there with my daughter full-time, 8-year-old little girl. And one of the questions I asked is, why aren't we a reentry? And the first answer that I got very quickly was, because we're women and children. It's, we have children here. Like it was a dangerous, thing, which, I mean, it may be. But what if, why? Why is it gotta be a dangerous thing? There's a lot of women coming out of prison that have children. Obviously, they want them back. How would we, move towards maybe making a women and children's a reentry?
Hi, I'm the reentry coordinator for our side of town. So it's not that it's dangerous for the women and children, because there are felons that live in women and children's houses. It's the fact that there's certain rules for reentry and certain rules for women and children's house, and it gets complicated when you put them both together. That's the problem I've came across with it. I was never told that it's for certain that you cannot be a reentry house. I was told it was suggested that you not be a reentry house.
First off, I would like to say I'm a product of reentry. Second off, I really don't have a question for y'all. I just want to thank Oxford House for making me the man I am today by accepting me through reentry.
My name is Bruce. I'm a coordinator for Oxford House in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we do have the reentry program there. And so far, it's working more so than it don't. But the question, what I want to put out there is, when you let these people come in from detox or treatment program and out of incarceration, they come there, they get themselves together, You give them 2 weeks to get a job and this and that, and get on their feet, get a little clean time. And as soon as they get their first paycheck, they stick the house with the bill. They just dip up when we ask them certain amount of rents. And as soon as they get themselves together, they dip on us, you know. And we done got burnt many a times at my Oxford house. I know there's a few other ones too that get burnt doing the right thing for people and still get stuck with the bill after they get themselves together a little bit. You got anybody? And then we still got to go to the chapter meeting and pay back that money. And for 6 months that somebody done tabbed up our, you know what I'm saying? Thanks for letting me share.
Well, I'm sorry, brother. I'm sorry. I feel you, man. You know, there's probably a whole lot of people mad about me. You know, but something tells me, brother, that you probably got some people too in your life, in your history. I don't know your story, but not to make light of what you're saying, but yeah, that is an issue. I know in North Carolina, it's really not a whole lot that you can do about it. You know, you keep living one day at a time, you keep doing the next right thing, and you trust God to sort out all that other nonsense, right? So just because Johnny came in and he burnt you, don't hold that against Roger. Right. We still got to give Roger a chance. Well, please give Curtis a chance. How about that? Is this on?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm used to hearing my mouth a little bit louder. I just wanted to say real quick that I'm not familiar with that term, reentry house. The young lady at the Women and Children, the Mommy and Me house, said, well, our house is not a quote-unquote reentry house. And I've been around Oxford House since 1996. I have no clue what that means, a reentry house. An Oxford House is an Oxford House. And Oxford House has never cared where you were coming from. You might be coming from the street, you might be coming from prison, you might be coming from the county jail, you might be coming from your mama house or your baby mama house. We don't care where you're coming from. The only thing Oxford House cares about is, do you want to be in recovery with us? And if you do, well, come on in, my brother, my sister. We got a bed for you. We got some food for you. We got some clothing for you. Any Oxford House in the world, any Oxford House, especially in America, can interview and accept anybody that they want to from anywhere, okay? So don't let anybody ever come to you and tell you that, oh, well, you can't interview that person because of the kind of house you are. You're an Oxford House with a charter, and that means you interview and you accept people that need it.
Hi, I'm Nathan. I'm from Topeka, Kansas. This question's for Ashley. I don't really have a question, actually. It's just I want to hear you share a little bit about what our chapter is doing for people coming out of prison with nothing. You know what I mean? We've done a lot of good stuff in Topeka, so I want you to share with everyone else that.
Okay, so what we've done in Topeka here lately is we have came together as a chapter and donated $500 to a reentry fund. That is to help a person that comes out of prison or jail that doesn't have the money to get into an Oxford House. We are about to start doing fundraisers so that we could build this account back up and keep replenishing it so that we have more money to house more men and women. We also have a house that has a clothing closet. All the houses in Topeka have donated hygiene items and clothing items for this closet for men and women. And even if you're coming out of treatment, we don't care. If you don't have anything, you come to that house and we'll get you something. That's what we do. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Amber. I am the new outreach for the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. So I'm just want to know if you guys have some tips or pointers, suggestions on how do I even start the process of getting into. I've been to my share of prisons. I'm a drug court graduate. I've been on the other side. How do I approach that? There's reentry funds we have in our region. We have the fund. I want to know, what are your suggestions on even starting that process on my end?
You mean to gain, for you to be allowed to go in and out of facilities and?
How do I?
Yeah, I would just contact the head of the Department of Corrections in the state of Mississippi. Introduce yourself. Hopefully, you know, they've certainly heard of Oxford House before, and schedule a meeting and just take it from there. Start at the top.
All right, thank you.
Start at the top. We got every cable channel today. We out here dripping. We're dripping with finesse today.
Hi, my name is Ashley. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana. Who that? So my question is, I did my time in the federal penitentiary, and it took me a very long road to finally get to Oxford. I left the state of Tennessee and came to New Orleans, but I had to sign up to do a rehab to get relocated, which I didn't really need. How do we flood our prisons with information about Oxford? Do I need to sit down, put some pamphlets in an envelope, send them in? Because there's so many women that don't know, that need to know, and Oxford has kept me from recidivating. I've got almost 3 years clean, and I wouldn't have that without Oxford. So I just want to see more women have the knowledge that they need to better their lives. Thank you.
You're on. Yes? There you go. AA has a very robust group committee called the Corrections Committee, and they do a lot of reentry work. They do bridging the gap. And I think that you could tie in with them if you felt comfortable with AA, because they have already set up all of these systems for being able to go behind the walls and take meetings in and correspond with people and then help people bridge the gap when they come out. It's a structure that's already set up, and I'm sure that they would be willing to work with you.
Hello, I'm Holly. I'm from San Antonio, Texas. So I actually just moved to Texas from Arizona. There's nothing like Oxford in Tucson, Arizona, nothing. So I'm so thankful. I've been sober 6 months, but my last conviction, yeah, I've been in Arizona. I've been to prison 2 times. My last conviction was last year. So my question's, how long would I have to wait to be able to maybe go back into the prison to do like a PowerPoint presentation how long do you have to wait from your last conviction to go back in? Do you know?
I think that's a state-by-state thing. I was able to go back into the prison that I came from after 2 years. So I think it's just state-by-state. All you would have to do is, like they were saying, contact somebody at the top, and they'd be able to answer that question for your state for you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Stevie. I'm from Roseburg, Oregon. I did most of my time, I didn't have the reentry program, but I did most of my time in California. And if you have an extensive record, like I was deemed a violent criminal, so there's a lot of, and I went to Oregon prison too, and but there's a lot of people in there, like myself, that can't talk to counselors, can't talk to, you know what I mean? You get your parole officer when you get out, and that's about all you get. So for like the drug court or the people that can do those programs, because their crimes are less, like California, if you had a strike on your record, you couldn't talk to none. You just got out on your day, and that's the way it was. So how do we go about talking to those other people? There's the people that, like myself, because I had a strike. I couldn't talk to nobody but my parole officer. And in California, it was go to the mission, or it just, but from then I went to Oregon, went to prison, got into Oxford. It's a whole different state, but there's other people in there like myself that need to be heard and talked to and be helped. How do we go about doing that? Because I can tell you that for myself, there was no one to talk to.
The state of California does not have Oxford House yet. Gene
Yes,
McVeigh.
They do have Oxford House.
Well, I mean, like a contract with established staff and outreach and that type of thing. So I think that as that begins to develop and we get that contract with this county and that county, because apparently we're not able to contract with the whole state at one time.
Yeah,
we're having to do it county by county. But once that's up and running and some good houses have a track record, so to speak, then some of those more difficult conversations will take place. The thing that I found out by working with people in the prison system is that the majority of the staff, they want us there. They want Oxford House to do presentations at their facility because their case managers are pulling their hair out. They don't have any place to send people. Not any place safe anyway. And so, you know, I think that once you're more established in that state, then those more difficult conversations will be a little bit easier to have.
I'm Shane, drug addict, reentry chair for Washington State. So the thing that I've been having a problem with a few of our counties there is if they don't have an actual bedroom, and I don't know if they do the $1,500 voucher in every state. I know in my state they do a $1,500 voucher for these guys that are men and women that are getting out. And if they don't have an actual room, then they won't be approved for the voucher. And, you know, and so some cases we say, oh, well, it's a bed, and hope that they don't ask to see the room. And just in my head, there's got to be a way to do it above the board where we say, hey, this is what it is, and for them to be okay with it. Or maybe if I could hear a little bit about what other people have done in other states if it's not the same.
What do you mean? They come out and stay on the couch till they can interview somewhere else or something?
Yeah. So like every house in my county and a lot of chapter and a couple of the chapters around, they'll let anybody come and re-enter into their house. And then just like any other couch position, the hopes is that they keep interviewing and try and get a permanent position in a house. Because it's really hard to keep a room open for somebody, you know what I mean? Especially in the Seattle area. That like when we update our website for opening, we'll have 15 to 20 people. You know, and as we know, you know, not everybody shows up for the interview, but still we'll have 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 people show up. So it's really hard to keep a room open for, especially for a house that's maybe not financially well off as other houses, you know. They can't keep a room open for the month or month and a half until somebody hits their ERD, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think somebody talked about that before. I would guess that would probably be something Oxford House would try to have to work out more so than getting them to change their rules. Didn't somebody say there was a house that was a few selected houses that were financially viable to have an extra bed set up in case that situation, you know, happens? I know it sounds like you guys are already doing it with a couch. Maybe there's some houses that can, you know, say, hey, that bed's only allowed to be used for this. And when then that person comes, we can drop our EES instead of have to raise it when they're not there or something like that.
Right.
Unless you guys have.
Just real quick, just to clarify that Oxford House, technically, we do not hold beds for anyone. So, with that being said, when we talk about reentry houses and reentry beds, by the book, technically, are we going against the grain? I don't, you know, that's such a gray area. And it was brought to my attention because whenever I had stated about Charlotte, you know, I caught a little grief about it. But I would just suggest us continue to get them in on the couch, you know, to work with them, to help them, to guide the light, or guide them in the path that they need to go, get them into the house that is struggling. If your state is giving them monies upon their release, then, you know, just continue to keep your doors open.
It's not a matter of the houses being willing. The houses are willing. It's the matter of the DOC officer not letting they'll come and inspect the house and say, oh, that's a common area. That person's denied the voucher now.
He can't get released?
Yeah, they'll sit past their ERD. Yep. I have one DOC housing lady who is cool with it, and I think that she kind of turns the blind eye for Snohomish County, which is right north of Seattle. But I feel like there should be some sort of recourse to be able to do it, you know, above the books. Like, she's just nice enough to do that. I'm not very fortunate in King County, which is the biggest need.
Yeah, to me, that sounds like a conversation. You guys out there in Washington State have quite a few outreach coordinators.
We do.
So, yeah, I would get with them, whoever is the reentry point person out there, that's the actual OHI staff, and have them begin that conversation with the Department of Corrections and see if we can't get that worked out.
All right, thank you, guys.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I'm Kevin from Tulsa, Oklahoma. So now I've been in prison 4 times. I've never been to a treatment facility, and I know that we go into treatment facilities and give presentations. But so my question is, where do I need to start about getting us to go into? Cause like I said, I've been in prison 4 times in Oklahoma, but I've never once seen anybody come in there and tell me about Oxford House. I just stumbled on it this time, which is how I've managed to stay out as long as I've been out of prison since I've been 18, right? So where do I start in getting people to go into these jails and prisons, let them know, hey, there's something different besides going back to the street when you get out?
Talk to Thomas Floyd. And I mean, he's your outreach, and he came out on an ankle monitor and out of DOC into a house I was living in, and he can tell you exactly how to do it. I know that all across Oklahoma, we've got residents that have cards that allow them into the facilities. And just in the last 5 months, I've been touring the state in facilities. So, talk to Thomas, and he coordinates trips. We do them together. We've been to, we're hitting every facility in the state all the time. Just get in the car, man. That's all you got to do.
Hi, I'm Jennifer. I'm from Shreveport, Louisiana, and I'm the regional reentry chair for Alabama, Louisiana, and Mississippi. And we have a reentry fund set up, and every 2 months we are able to place about 12 reentries throughout the 3 states. But the problem that I'm now running into is once they get out, what they do from there, because I'm an ex-offender. I came in through reentry almost 2 years ago. So I know that the problems, but how do we bridge a gap between the offenders coming out and the houses, helping them and not just saying, okay, well, here you go, now figure it out. Because I think that's the problem we're running into, because we can't keep them. That a lot of them aren't staying because they're going and they're relapsing. And they want it when they come home, but then they're kind of get lost. It's kind of like getting lost in the system in a sense.
We got 2 minutes for 4 questions too, so this is a 10-second answer.
So really, I guess the short answer to that is get connected to whatever community resources are available in those states. We can't do this on our own. So I know in North Carolina, there's quite a few agencies, nonprofits, churches, all kinds of, situations where people have a heart to want to help that returning citizen. So we just have to get our folks connected to that.
My name's Alyssa. I'm from Fremont, Nebraska. How do we get drug court and probation to send girls to our house when previous girls in our house have gone to drug court or probation and bad-mouthed our house? When we're a very strong house, it's just they didn't want to live in our house no more, and they just wanted to go back home, or I don't know where else they wanted to go, but they just no longer wanted to live in the house, and they'd go bad-mouth it so they could move out. And they will no longer send anybody to our house to interview at all.
Well, my experience with drug court, has been that a lot of people talk badly about drug court, and they're usually the people that didn't do well in drug court, and they're the people who are locked up. It's sad to me that people take advice from the people who obviously messed up. But I've been in jail, and I've heard that you're just going to set me up for failure. That's what we get a lot. And all you can do is make sure that you spread your message. I know in St. Louis they have a really good, they advertise for their drug court, and you could do the same thing for Oxford House. They have posters made, and they're hanging up in the jail that says, we have this, ask your lawyer, ask your judge, ask your treatment person, ask anybody that you can to get you into drug court. And you could do the same thing for Oxford House. Make sure that people know that it's there and that they shouldn't be taking the word of the guy in the next cell or the person who wasn't successful.
Thank you.
We got to try to hurry with these.
I'm Marshall from Claremore, Oklahoma, HSC for Chapter 13. My question is, our chapter has a lot of involvement with drug court, like especially, my house, most of it's drug court, and I know you're not supposed to share Oxford business outside of drug court, outside of Oxford, but we get a lot of the drug court PO coming in and wanting to know about what's going on in the house, and we just I want to hear other approaches on how to approach that kind of a situation, I guess.
I don't know if that's necessarily against any rule. I don't know where that came from.
Be transparent.
Okay.
You know, I would just like to tell you that we have some real strong laws and ethical situations as drug court professionals where we don't talk about drug court stuff to anybody outside of the drug court. And so if somebody wants to, I don't even tell them they're in drug court. I don't tell them where they're living and I don't want to hear gossip from the Oxford House. I don't want to hear details of their personal issues and treatment. Those are all separate things. And if somebody has a positive drug test in drug court, it's not my job to report them to Oxford House. You know, that's not conducive to recovery. That, you know, they need to tell the Oxford House what their situation is. And so, again, I mean, I think we have these worlds that we want to connect and we all want to work together, but that doesn't mean that we inform outside of our specific role.
My question was, I was just making sure there wasn't some specific or special thing you had to do to accept reentry, because I know in Oklahoma that we are a women's and children's house and we are reentry, and you said you didn't know what a reentry house was, and really all we use ours for is for the point of contact, a men's reentry and a women's reentry. But if we can't accept that application, we email it to somebody else and they're more than happy to take that reentry. So I'm not saying it to be like a smart ass or anything. I'm just really wondering, because we have our autonomy in Oxford and every house can talk about that and have the decision to accept that person. We all have been through things that aren't the best, and that's my question.
So I thought, I mean, if you listen to what Curtis said, and,
Yeah.
and I know you, Taylor, what Curtis said was exactly right. If you have a reentry house, okay, and you say this is reentry, well, then the next thing you know, you're going to have this house and that house. We're Oxford House all the way around.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and that's the most important thing. And houses are autonomous. If they want to bring somebody in from prison, if they want to bring somebody in from the homeless shelter, wherever it is. So, and reentry is not so specific to prison. It's someone that's reentering society from whatever capacity. So a house is free to do whatever they choose. Does that
Exactly. Yeah, I was just making sure.
Okay.
All right, guys, I want to thank you for the time. If you have any more questions, you can come up to the panelists after.